The Kidney Journey. Moments of Light with Toro the Decoder. It had gotten probably triggered by 8 months working to fix the roof of the house of the owner, a property I lived on for many years. The roof got destroyed in a hurricane, and being on the roof in the hot tropical sun, and breathing in fumes of toxic paint to seal the roof, and not keeping up with hydrating the body and definitely dehydrating it, a small kidney stone was forming itself. 1.5 years later, and being somewhat isolated during a pandemic, the kidney stone attacks became stronger one after the other. I tried everything the natural way to help, but with no result. The challenge was not alone coping with an intense of pain I never had experienced on that level, but coping with no urologist on the island and thus no help at the hospital. I had had pain in my life, but this went off the scale, even with all the medication I had received. Like the hurricane that had passed through that was off the scale. I really wanted to die or thought I was dying. At one point in time at the hospital they noticed that the kidney was suffering too much, and although there were no planes coming in and out because the airport was closed, an emergency jet was organized to fly me to another island to have an operation. It was a beautiful evening sky, just after the sunset, and before I stepped onto the small jet plane, I looked back at life and was content, having lived an extraordinary life. I looked around me and thanked the island for all it had brought me over the years, and started to think about my son and his mother, who were living elsewhere and still needed my help in my opinion. Then it dawned on me that I was merely an illusion, in a dying process to free the soul within, and that everything in this illusion was a reflection of myself. So, when I was no more, there was also nothing to care of anymore. A peace came over me, or thought or through me, and stepped into the plane, which became a tunnel of sound and light for the time we were flying to the other island. At the moment I landed, I realized that the experience I just had was a reflection of my luxurious side of my life, which I had for many years, and the experience of dying without having any fear and actually happy that the earthly adventure and illusion soon would be over. I thought that I would not come back. Arriving at the other island and ending up in the hospital, the other side of my life came before me, having lived in poverty, with pain, and with refugees, because the hospital looked as if it had been bombed. It had not been really renovated after the hurricane. Electric cables were hanging everywhere, and within half an hour I was preparing myself for the operation. With a bucket of water, a bottle of betadine, and some sheets to dry myself with, I had to smile, and thinking about more severe situations, and the peace continued inside and all around me. I woke up after the operation with even more pain until they had figured out how to get it somewhat down, and I was disappointed that I was back again. Luckily, the inner silent prayer and meditation took completely over, and I went in another state of tranquility, trance and peace and bliss. The next day I was told to leave the hospital. They had saved the kidney and had 2 tubes inside of me, but the stone had not been removed. Seemingly that was the protocol, and I was allowed to stay 1 more day because I was very weak, realizing that I had not eaten for days, which is an automatic instinctive way when the body gets sick. The next day, just before lunch, I was unplugged from the drip and released from the catheter and put into a cab to the airport. I was peeing blood and barely could hold it until we arrived at the airport and finding a bush To my great surprise, or better said ignorance, I was standing before a closed airport. The pandemic, I had forgotten. But seemingly there was a plane coming to leave for the island I had come from. However, I had no ticket and the doors were closed and just a few people inside. I started to panic. Every couple of minutes I had to find the bush to pee, and bleeding, etc., etc. But slowly more passengers were arriving and confirming that a plane was coming. The pain got more and the panic increased also, with the thought that when I would be able to get on that plane, how to handle the going to the bathroom, as all planes I had seen and had been on, flying between islands, were very small and no toilet. These were probably the worst hours of my life, experiencing self-pity, losing trust, faith, and any sensation of peace. Arriving back at the island I lived and at home, falling on the ground, totally exhausted. I looked back, and everything had been organized perfectly. But I had to experience that self-pity, losing trust, faith, and any sensation of peace. On the airport, at one point in time, somebody saw my eyes, let me come into the airport, got to purchase a ticket, and ending up in a bigger size plane with a bathroom.